I have opened it here. Yes. So far we have discussed the fourth chapter till the verses 4.9, and today we are going to discuss 4.10. Let me ask the blessings from all of the assembled Vaishnavas. Please give your heartfelt blessings, and then we can start. Hare Krishna. So we'll repeat the verse. I hope you are able to see my screen. वीतराग भया क्रोधा
वीतरागभयक्रोधा
मन्मया मामुपाश्रिता
मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः
भववो ज्ञानतपसाः
बहवो ज्ञानतपसा
पूता मद्भावमागतः
पूतमद्भावमागताः
वीतराग भया क्रोधा
वीतरागभयक्रोधा
मन्मया मामुपाश्रिता
मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः
भववो ज्ञानतपसाः
बहवो ज्ञानतपसा
पूता मद्भावमागता
पूतमद्भावमागतः आगताः
वीतराग भया क्रोधा
वीतरागभयक्रोधा
मन्मया मामुपाश्रिता
मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः
भववो ज्ञानतपसाः
बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूतमद्भावमागताः
Anyone wants to recite?
वीतरागभयक्रोधा
Yeah, you can go at end to see. वीतरागभयक्रोधा
मन्मया माम् उपाश्रिताः
उपाश्रिता
बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूता मद्भावमागताः
वीतरागभयक्रोधा मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूतमद्भावमागतः
Yes.
वीतरागभयक्रोधा
मन्मया मामुपाश्रिता
मन्मया मामुपाश्रिताः
बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूतमद्भावमागता
Anyone else want to go? If no, then we'll go to synonyms. Vita. Freed from. Raga. Attachment. Bhaya. Fear. Krodha. And anger. Matmaya. Fully in me. Mam. In me. Upashritaha. Being fully situated. Bhava. Many. Jnana. Of knowledge.
Tapasa.
By the penances. Putaha. Being purified. Madbhavam. Transcendental love for me.
Love for me.
Agatha,
Agatha.
Agataha.
attained.
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 Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. So we'll quickly go through it. Translation. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. Purport. As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand how the Supreme can be a person. Such materialistic cannot even imagine that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge, and eternally blissful. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind, and when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord, for such materialistic men, the form of the
Oh, really?
Never says nothing to
No,
us.
he never said a damn word to us.
Gil Mataji, can you
Now,
please go on
it said
mute?
if there are people looking that think our property, they want our property, how come you don't send them to us?
Right.
You
I
know,
know.
it's like, you know,
He doesn't.
if you go to town hall, you're always gonna get lowball.
Oh, yeah.
Jill, you're not on mute. Jill.
Thank you. Sorry for the disturbance. Okay, so we are here that therefore people in general keep the same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic man, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the supreme to be impersonal, and because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightened them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming person again, and so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entity to the bubbles of the ocean, which merges into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence attainable without individual personality. This is a kind of fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. Furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand the spiritual existence at all. Being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation, they become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Such people are in a diseased condition of life. Some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. Some of them want to merge into the impersonal, into the supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything. Being angry at all sort of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness, this last class of men take to the shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their effective hallucination are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. One has to get rid of all these three stages of material consciousness: attachment to material life, fear of a spiritual personal identity, and the conception of void that arise from frustration of life. To get free from these three stages of material concept of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord, guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and follow the discipline and regulative principles of devotional life. The last stage of devotional life is called bhava, or transcendental love of Godhead. According to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.4.15 to 16, the science of devotional service, Atu Shraddha Tatha Shatu Sangha, Atha Bhajan Kriya, Tatha Anartha Nipritisya, Tatha Nishtha Ruchi Satha, Atha Sakti Sato Bhava, Satha Prema Bhya, Vyutanchatihi Sadhkanam Ayam Premanaha, Padurbhave Bhavet Kramaha. In the beginning, one must have a primary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service, under the guidance of spiritual masters, one becomes free from all material attachment, attains steadiness in self realization, and acquire a taste for hearing about this absolute personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love of God is called prema. The highest perfection stage of life. In the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, by the slow process of devotional service, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment. From the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustration that results in void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. So, can anybody let me know what was the last verse we have discussed? What did we discuss in the last verse? Why Krishna is speaking about this verse now, today?
Janma karma cha me divyam Mataji.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. Yes. So Krishna spoke about Janma Karma Chametyam. So he said Janma Karma Chametyam evam yo veti tattvataha takta deham punarjanma naiti mamiti. So Arjuna. So Krishna has said, who attain to my abode, who knows the activity, who knows the karma and activities, like the Janma, the birth. Lord doesn't take the birth, the appearance day, and who understand the activities in real truth, then they would not, after leaving this material body, they would not return to this temporary miserable world. Rather, they achieve the highest perfection, that is the abode of the Lord. Okay, so here what the Lord is saying, Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha, in this verse, Lord is saying that how you can, go, and who can go. Lord is saying who can go, right? So Lord has said that how we can, but who can achieve, and now Lord is saying in this verse how we can achieve that particular state, right? Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mamupashita. So lot of the people, Bhavavo Jnana Tapasaha, lot of people by doing austerity, they have attained my transcendental nature. So how we attain the transcendental nature has been discussed in this particular verse. So let us discuss this verse. So here we have to understand this word called Madbhavam. So Madbhavam means like attachment to me. Krishna says, right? Madbhavam means attachment to me. So complete attachment to Lord. If we don't have attachment to Lord Krishna, then we are not going to back home, back to Godhead. But if we have attachment to Krishna, then only we can go back home, back to Godhead. So what does Krishna says in another verse? We have discussed it one time and earlier, but in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about his opulences, right? 10.8 Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo Mata Sarvam Pravartate. So Buddha Bhava Samanvita. So whoever understand that Krishna is the source of the material and the spiritual world, he can attain. He can, by his Buddha Bhava, he's very intelligent, and he do the devotional service to Krishna. Because without doing devotional service to Krishna, we cannot get free from this bhaya, krodha, these three material condition, right? Raga means attachment, bhaya means fearfulness, and krodha means anger, right? So Krishna is here talking about how we can get free from these three conditions. So, and we should also know the greatness of Krishna, right? So if we doesn't know, let's say if we have somebody and we don't know their greatness, then we might not engage in service. So Krishna therefore Krishna speaks his opulences, some of his opulences speaks in Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, and lot of the one he also speaks in the 10th chapter. And also similar kind of instruction actually Lord Krishna gave to Uddhava in Uddhav Gita, there in Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, where Uddhava asked the similar question as Arjuna asked, how you pervade in this material world. So Krishna says similar kind of opulences. Does anybody remember any of the opulences Krishna speaks in 10th chapter? Like that's just one or two of them. What does Krishna says?
Can I tell one opulence of Krishna?
Mm-hmm.
The one opulence of Krishna is same strength.
Sorry,
Strength.
I could not understand Tulsi.
She
What
said
you said?
strength.
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 Strength. Okay. Yeah. That is yes, that is from one of the six opulences which say all strength, beauty, fame, renunciation. So that is there. That is the opulence of the Lord. Also, Krishna talks in 10th chapter about like what is what. Like he is the he's the Himalaya in the mountains, and he's the uh, what else he says? He says a lot of things. He's spring in the spring season. He's spring in the season, and multiple opulences. Like he's Indra in the demigod. He's the sun. He's the moon. So these kind of opulences, just to relate. Just if we see these things, we can remember Lord Krishna, because Krishna speaks about all these opulences. Let's say if we see the water bodies. So what this Krishna says? Krishna says, "I am the ocean from the water body," because ocean is so vast. So that represent Krishna's power, Krishna's just a spark of Krishna's power. He says that in the last when he speaks, he said, "What to say about my opulences? I just with my tiny spark, I just pervade everywhere." So he just say the main opulences, not complete opulences. We cannot count Krishna's opulences so vast. So, first of all, to get attached to somebody or to some person, we first should know how the person is great, right? So, sometime, here, like sometime you might have heard people say that God is great, but they don't know how the God is great, right? But our spiritual understanding, our ISKCON movement, where Prabhupada very perfectly explained, he gave Bhagavad Gita as it is, where it perfectly explains Bhagavad Gita as Krishna is speaking. So, how Krishna is great has been mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. So, some of the verses like 7.7, Krishna says, Mata Parataram Nanyat, Kinchit Asti Dhananjaya, Maya Sarvamidam Tatam. Sorry, just mixed it. Mata Sar, what is that verse? Mata Parataram Nanyat, Kinchit Asti Dhananjaya. Maya Sarvamitam Proktam Sutre Mani Ganaiva. So he says, there is no superior truth than me. And he says, I'm the taste of the water and all those things. So we should know that how great is our Lord, and then we can take shelter, right? So let's say if you have some friend, but once you know that, oh, this friend is like, if we just say the material example, like how opulent is your friend, then you have the more attachment to the friend. Such a nice friend I got, not necessarily from the material perspective. If your friend is very kind to you and you understand your friend very nicely, then you think, okay, my friend is so nice, how he's treating me, like that. So also we have to understand the Krishna's opulence to surrender unto him, because once we understand how great Krishna is, and also at the same time we have to understand how tiny we are nothing, right, compared to Krishna. And Prabhupada also talks about sometime these some people are very much afraid of the like consider a supreme as a person, because they have the bitter relationship, like in their family, in their friends, they have the taste of bitter relationship. So when you talk about the relationship with the supreme or some spiritual person, God is a person, is a spiritual person, then they cannot imagine and they consider him as impersonal, because they are afraid to enter into a relationship, because they think that it might be maybe 1% better than what I have in the material world. But that's not the case. The relationship with the Lord is eternal, and it's very on the highest platform. So that's what Prabhupada also talks in the purport. And then they try to merge into the impersonal void where they don't have any relationship. But that's not the devotee of the Lord. Consider that as the narakaye, kevala narakayate. So a devotee of the Lord consider the sahajya mukti, or the impersonal void, merging into the impersonal, as the hellish, even worse than hellish, because they want to serve the Lord. So they want to have a relationship with the Lord, because they understand the Lord is spiritual, right? Sachitananda Vigraha. He doesn't have a body like us. So Prabhupada also says and talk about the frog, Mr. Frog. Does anybody knows Mr. Frog philosophy, which Prabhupada often talks about?
Is it the story where the frog keeps showing how big it could get and it explodes eventually?
I think so. Prabhupada says that there is a frog. There is a frog in a well, and another frog from the ocean comes to this well. And Prabhupada says that this A is a frog well and B is a friend of this frog A. So he said, you know how big is the ocean? It's so vast, right? He can't even explain. It's so vast ocean. So he said, so the A frog says that, yeah, how much is it? It is twice of my well. Is it thrice of my well? Okay, it could be more than 6 times. It cannot be more than that, because this frog, we are like this frog in the material world, where we cannot understand the spiritual, complete the spiritual sky. But it is really, really vast. We also say this material world is just 1/4. And you see the living entity, we cannot count. It's unlimited, right? You see the place. If you just go out of your door, you see so many ants. Or even at your home, somewhere you see so many living entity. In our body also there are so many bacteria and all those are also the living entities, so unlimited. And it's just a 1/4. So Krishna can maintain these number of the unlimited living entities. So Krishna is definitely very higher and I mean very highest and supreme. So that then this frog A cannot understand. That's a frog philosophy. Prabhupada says he will understand according to his circumference of his what you call the well. But he says thrice 6 times he cannot go. Then he says, okay, you're not saying the truth. But he cannot imagine, because he never went out of this well, so he cannot understand. That's what Prabhupada says is a frog. And our condition is also like similar to like that. But we trust on the we have a faith in the scripture, faith in the words of Krishna, faith in the word of Prabhupada. So, and then we started listening what they are saying. Because with this material senses, we cannot realize spiritual sky. We cannot see directly the spiritual form of the Lord. But we see the Archvigraha, that is similar to manifestation of the Lord. So, here in this verse, first of all, we have to understand, we have to get attached to get free from Vita Raga Bhaya. We have to, sorry, Vita means Gaya, and Bhaya, Vita, Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. So Raga, attachment, fear, and anger. We have to not come under the control of all these material modes, so that we can get attached to Krishna. Otherwise, it's very easy to fall into the illusion. So that's what we have to try to do. Also, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a very wonderful verse that has been described that says, Siddhanta Baliya Chitta na kare alasa, iha haite Krishna lage sprudidha Manasa. So sometime what happen when somebody is speaking about philosophy, we might feel sleepy, or we might think, okay, what they are saying, when they are going to say the pastime. But before entering into the pastime of the Lord, we have to understand what is the Lord position. So Siddhanta means the tattva. First, we have to establish the tattva of the Lord, and then only we have to enter the pastime of the Lord. Then we can understand the pastime of the Lord in at least in a correct attitude. Because if we say, okay, Krishna is doing stealing, but what is there? So many people steal in this world, right? So first of all, we understand the Krishna's position, and then we go from there. So very beautiful verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela that mentions that first we don't have to feel lazy about understanding the tattva of the Lord, philosophy which has been given in our scriptures, that we have to understand, and then we go. Then Krishna will be we will know about Krishna's opulence, and then we'll say, oh, Krishna is so great, how tiny I am, let me take shelter of Krishna, right? Like that. So because Brahma also says, right? What does Brahma says? Brahma says, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamam Bhajami. In every verse of the Brahma Samhita, he says this last verse that, he is the Lord. He is Adi Purusham. He is the original Lord, and I worship that Govinda. And he also says, Brahma also says in one of the words in Brahma Samhita, where he says that only with one planetary expansion, the Lord is maintaining the whole material creation. Remember that Prabhuji was showing on Monday the chart, right? Krishna, then Sankarshan, then four Chaturya form, and then from there Narayana, and then from Narayana another Sankarshan, and then the Mahavishnu, the Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So just with Mahavishnu, and Mahavishnu lies down and he just breathe, and he just create this so many universes. And it has been also mentioned that our earth is just a little like a mustard seed, and there are a lot of the so many universes, and our Brahma is the smallest Brahma, because there are so many big universes that the four-headed Brahma cannot manage. So they are, thousands and thousands of headed Brahma, which are which are maintaining this universe like as a secondary creator. But who is the first creator is Lord Mahavishnu. Ete chamsha kalapumsham Krishna stu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Loke Mridayanti Yuge Yuge. So in Bhagavatam, it says Krishna stu Bhagavan Swayam. There are so many plenary portion of plenary portion, but who is Krishna is Bhagavan Swayam. So we have to understand, just with the one plenary expansion, Krishna is doing so much, right? And Krishna just think and all the things happens for him. So here, once we understand Krishna's situation, then only we can try to surrender to the Lord. And once we try to execute our surrendering process, then we get attachment to the Lord, right? Everything you do, let's say some example can be given. If you sometime when you might, I think somebody was saying about pizza, when they tasted pizza first time, they did not, on the call I have heard sometime, so they don't like, but later on when they ate it again and again, they developed a taste. So similarly, to develop a taste, we have to do it again and again. Our mind doesn't like chanting, but we have to somehow yena kena prakarena, somehow we have to engage ourselves in chanting. Most of the time what happens, we feel lazy, including myself, we feel lazy and we don't do our chanting till the end of the day. We'll be just and then we realize that till 11 o'clock I have to do some round to chant, and then how our rounds have been chanted, we know. Sometime in the morning also we feel sleepy, we cannot get up, that all things happens, but we have to try to overcome that situation by doing it again and again. So we have to chant more and more, but the problem is that we are not having the taste to chant it more and more. But once we do it properly in the right consciousness, then we'll be getting the taste. So that's a most important thing. At our old age, we'll be not able to do so many services. So what will be our best friend at that time would be the chanting, because if we can sit at one place and we can chant, that is also very difficult for old age people. They have so much pain. I mean, pollen is a little better now, but when the pollen is high, when you just go out and you sneeze a lot, and you just have this eyes rubbing, you cannot do anything. You just feel so disgusted that with this allergy or any kind of thing, like if you have fever, if you have tooth pain, anything can give you the miserable condition of life. So for that point of time, you don't even feel like doing anything, what to talk about chanting. So what's the situation at the old age is very difficult. Our mind is not properly functioning, our limbs are not properly functioning, we're having pain here and there, and then the chanting. But that's how, if we develop the taste, then somehow or other we'll be chanting Krishna's name, and that's the highest perfection of life. We chant the holy name, and then definitely at the time of leaving the body, we'll definitely remember Krishna, or at least something related to Krishna, so that we can go back to Krishna, or at least we can get a human birth as a devotee of the Lord, so that we can finish our Krishna consciousness. But what happens, the other case, where we are attached to the materialistic life, Prabhupada says that for materialistic life, all these people, all of us have the tendency to do the illicit kind of activities, like the fourth principle, like breaking the regulative principle, or doing the illicit activities, illicit sense gratification, or eating. So many restaurants. Prabhupada talks about so many restaurants are there throughout the world. What? Just to satisfy the tongue. There are so many restaurants has been opened, because we cannot live without these things. So that's in the material condition status. These things are required, but they have to be done under the proper regulations. So that's why all the devotees, they have been given these 4 regulative principles as a regulation, so that they can regulate. Okay, you desire it, but that's not good for you, because what you do when you do those things, you do atmaha. Atmaha is is a word which has been used in the Shastras to say the killer of the soul. Ideally, the soul cannot be killed, but Atmaha means killing the soul means when we degrade our soul to the lower, to get it a lower birth. That's called Atmaha, because we have got this highest human birth. But what we did not cultivate Krishna consciousness in appropriate manner, and then we have lost. So that's called Atmaha. So we have to follow these regulative principles of no illicit sex, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication. And then when we do it, this will create an atmosphere of practicing the spiritual life. And then when we practice the spiritual life, we get a taste. So there is a word, right? Param drishtva nivardate. So when we have a higher taste, then only we can give back the lower taste. So Prabhupada gives this example of sweet, right? So every one of us mostly like sweets. So if you're not diabetic, even if you're diabetic, it happens that you might like the sweet, but you cannot eat. That's a different thing. But there is a jaggery good, and there is a very sweet rasgulla that has been made, prepared out of the mixture of rasgulla powder. So what you will prefer to eat? Usually the people will say, okay, this nice rasgulla I want to eat, and then the lower taste, the taste will go away. Similarly, when we engage ourselves, when we follow the regulative principle, then this lower taste of engaging in the materialistic life will go away. And we all have some at least a little bit of taste wherein we are not doing other activity rather hearing Bhagavad Gita. So some kind of experience we have, but to increase our spiritual life, we have to do it regularly, and uninterrupted we have to do. And how much ever materialistic people, they want to get a lot of pleasure from this material body. But recently we celebrated Nrsimha Chaturdashi. So what Prahlad Maharaj says in his prayer is that what is this material body? This material body is just like a house of a disease, and we can see, right? Somehow or the other we get this or that disease. That's that will be there. So this material body is not instrument to give us pleasure. It can give us pleasure a little bit here and there, the so-called pleasure of sense gratification, but it has a more power to give us the pain. Like if just your all body is good, like all good, but if just you walking and just a one nail, if it is if you hit with your feet, then your all consciousnesses go there because you are feeling so much pain. And this body can give us lot of disease. So this is just, according to Prahlad Maharaj, this is just the storehouse of store, like there is so much storage of the disease in the material body. So how much pleasure we can get out of this body? We cannot really get a real pleasure from our this body. So that's why we have to use somehow or the other a good use of a bad bargain. Prabhupada also talks about this often, where he says that okay, we got this material body, what to do now? What we have to do is it's a bad bargain to get a material body, but we have to use a good. How we are using? If we use it in Krishna service, then our body becomes purified. By purifying the senses, we get attached to Krishna. That's the Krishna is saying. And he is saying so many people, by practicing the austerity, not the simple austerities Hiranyakashipu did. He also did austerities. But by practicing the austerity in the spiritual life, one can get closer to Krishna. Once attached to Krishna, one definitely will go to attain Krishna's nature. So I would have to discuss more about this, like the Bhava stage. But do we have any comments, any realization, any correction till this point? Before I go ahead to the last para, what Prabhupada talks about in the last second paragraph of the purport. Anything, any realization, anything they can say now, and then we'll go to the next part.
I have a question, Padmalocini.
Yes.
Can I ask?
Yes, sure, Mataji, you can ask.
Oh, so the question is, it says 3 types of attachments. One is attachment to material life, another one, fear of spiritual identity and like voidism.
Mhm.
And the third one, or the spiritual, I guess then the third one is voidism, I guess. So, but fear of spiritual identity, that's like Brahman realization is not material, right? So if
Mataji, okay. Let
so
me
there's
read.
yeah, it's in the purport, you know.
Mhm. So you're saying, yeah, let me
Where
just
does it say? Hold on,
to get, yeah, I'm checking,
I'll get
Mataji.
the exact.
Attachment to material life.
Yeah, one has to get rid of all 3 stages of material consciousness: attachment to material life,
Yes.
fear of a spiritual personal identity, and the conception of void that arises from frustration in life.
Yes,
So to
Mataji.
free
So,
from these 3 stages, but fear of spiritual personal identity could be Brahman realization. That is not material, right?
okay. Yes, Mataji. So attachment to material life is right, raga, attachment to our this material life, right? We have so much attachment that is there. And fear of spiritual person identity. As I talked about, right? There are some people who will not think that they have to again go to the personal relationship with anybody. So they fear of their spiritual identity. They cannot understand, like this frog cannot understand the ocean position. The frog bee, similarly, we cannot understand that there can be a spiritual body. It's not like I have to be in this material body and have the similar kind of relationship. So what I understand from here is fear of a spiritual personal identity. When we have a fear that it will be same, or when I say Krishna is like this frog is saying about the ocean, so the heat is, if Krishna is okay, he might be twice intelligent than me, or he might be thrice intelligent me. Then we have that fear of spiritual identity when we compare Krishna with ourselves, that kind of activity, Mataji. And the third one,
But fear of a spiritual identity is not equated with Brahman realization here then, correct?
no.
Okay.
The conception of the void is has been equated to Brahman, Mataji. Conception
No,
of the
but
void.
even voidism is not Brahman realism. Voidism could be like nihilism, like there's nothing after you die. You know, that voidism is different from impersonalism. You know, Brahman realization is more impersonalism. It's not voidism.
That's what my understanding is, Mataji, voidism, because when we say Prabhupada mantra, right, what we say, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtata Deshatarine. So that Nirvishesha
Oh,
Shunyavadi.
Shunyavadi, right.
So voidism means impersonalism, Mataji. So
but that's where I'm confused, because impersonalism, Brahman realization is still considered spiritual. So I'm confused why it is equated with material
being free from all
attachments.
free from the fearfulness of one's and frustration. Yeah, Mataji, actually what happens, right, it is not compared to the any material thing. If you go to the last line, last 3 lines where you read, where I'm reading, and from the frustration that result in void philosophy. So what is that frustration is, this materialistic life they are done with. They're done with the relationship with the family, they're done with the relationship with the friends, enemies, and then they want to enter into the impersonal, where they are not saying Krishna is my friend, Krishna is my mother and father. They don't want to enter into the relationship. So it has not been compared to the material. As far as my understanding is, it has not been compared here with the material stick life, but it has been compared with the frustration that makes them think about the impersonalism rather than the personality of the Lord.
Yes, at that point, maybe not, but one has to get rid of all 3 stages of material consciousness.
Okay.
There it is
Yeah, okay. You're saying
coupled
material.
together with
Oh, that
material,
word you're saying. One has
Yeah,
to get rid of all
yeah.
these three
All
material
3, yeah. Material consciousness. So
Anybody has anything to add on Mataji's point, where she's saying why Prabhupada refers here as a 3 stage of material consciousness? Actually, Mataji, one thing I want to add, sorry, before you add, just that got into my mind. Prabhupada also says that's the last snare of Maya, where
Right,
you
right.
want to enter. So if they are in the Maya, and then Mataji, isn't it? They think that they are God. So I'm God, you're God. It's just that I have come under the illusion. But when I'll do some practices, I'll realize that I am God. But they cannot answer this question wherein Prabhupada asked or anybody asked that how come God can come under the control of Maya? Then Maya is the Lord, not the God, Lord the Supreme, not the Lord is the God because he came under. So Maya should be the greatest, right? Highest because he came under. So I think that's last snare of Maya means they are thinking that way could be a material, but anybody else can add to Mataji's question on here. Let me share my screen quickly so that you can see what Mataji is saying.
I mean, of course, to the personalist, it's spiritual suicide and it's not
Yes.
at all attractive. But
So,
Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are all three considered spiritual aspects, even though it is a rudimentary understanding
mhm.
at the Brahman level.
Yes, correct, Mataji, you are right. So one has to get rid of all these three stages of material consciousness. Does anybody has anything to add on this? Or let's check on this on Mataji. That's what my understanding was with what I said, but we can see if somebody wants to add anything here. Nobody wants to add. Okay, Mataji, I'll check on it this and
Yeah,
get back
that's
to you
okay.
why he
Okay.
says material consciousness. But that's what also my understanding when Prabhupada also talks about the last snare of Maya. Then
Yeah.
yeah.
So Hare Krishna Mataji, so on the purport that you are sharing,
Mhm.
the one line before
Mhm.
where Srila Prabhupada referring to a class of men, and he also referred term like spiritual vision.
Mhm.
Spiritual vision, he's talking from drugs and intoxication, I think.
Yes. Actually,
LSD and that kind
yes,
of
Mataji.
hallucinations. Yeah.
Exactly. Prabhupada disciple, in Prabhupada Leela Amrita, Prabhupada has talked about, like in that book, multiple times have been talked about. They were thinking that they are at the highest spiritual level with this hallucination, which they are getting some light, they are seeing,
Right. They were trying to almost
but that's not
kind
the
of
spiritual
attain
vision.
that, yeah, that spiritualism through
Yeah,
drugs. Yeah, that's
they think because that's what Prabhupada when he went and then when he saved them because they wanted to go to the spirituality but they don't know the correct path. So they were thinking that by taking these drugs we are going to the spiritualism like that. So that kind
right.
of spiritual vision has been talked about here, Prabhu.
That's why he
They,
had programs that said stay high forever.
yes, Mataji. Yes, and stay high forever with Krishna or something like that. They did that poster, right? You remember from the
Yeah,
book?
yeah,
Yeah, stay high forever, never come down like that. Yes,
yeah.
yes. And Prabhupada, actually, somebody, it reminded me one of the instance where somebody said to Prabhupada that how can you say that LSD is not good? It feels so good when we take it. There are some I think in the initial days when Prabhupada was in New York, lower market side, lower street side. So then Prabhupada says, "You, I have never taken. I was born in a Vaishnava family. I have not even taken tea and coffee, all these things. You know what to talk about LSD and all these things." So then he said, "But you ask my disciple. They were all, they were all taking it, and now once they have taken the Krishna consciousness, they just." Like that, they were trying to pull back Prabhupada, these group who came to the Prabhupada program. Like that, Prabhupada answered. Someone answered from the disciples who were taking like that. That reminded me of that.
So Gitamala Mataji, in the purport itself, like Srila Prabhupada talked about the fear. So in the same paragraph, if we go few lines up, where the line starts that says, when they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again. And so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into impersonal void. And generally, they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. This is the highest perfection of spiritual existence attainable without individual personality, and this is the kind of fearful stage. So I believe Prabhupada is talking about a class of men who think, when they hear about spiritual life is the individual and personal, and their fear is even after death, they become person again. But they really want to, so they think then they cannot ever merge with the whatever void or spiritual they think about. Their conception is, if spiritual life also give me again a person and I will never ever merge, then that become a fear in their mind. That's what I'm reading now. That's where the identity of spirituality, that become a cause of fear for.
Right.
I don't know
because
whether you got that line. And
they associate form with matter in one sense, you know.
Yes, I mean,
yeah,
like,
but Mataji, you got
how
that line
philosophy.
in the purpose.
Where
Actually,
exactly is it? I did bubbles. I got entities. Generally, they compare the living entities, the bubbles I got, but it's before that, right? When they're
Yeah.
informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become
want me to
afraid of
share,
becoming
Mataji?
persons again. And so
Correct.
they
That,
naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. Generally, they compare the living entities, the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence. But it still says here, spiritual existence, attainable without individual personality. It is, see, even still Prabhupada in the purport says, that is the
Yeah,
highest
that's what the
perfection of,
contradiction I noticed when Prabhu said.
yeah,
So this is a kind of fearful stage of life, devoid of perfect knowledge of devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. But it says perfect. No, it is devoid of that perfect spiritual knowledge.
correct. But it says that's the highest
Furthermore,
perfection of spiritual existence attainable without individual personality.
yeah, so I think Prabhupada is referring the words like here and there, but it means what for me is that why Prabhupada is saying a material consciousness, because that Maya, it's the last snare of Maya, where we think that we are God and we are become Mayavati or impersonal.
Right. And he says it's imperfect knowledge of spiritual existence.
Yeah.
But then at that other sentence that I
point.
showed, he calls
Yes.
it material concept, you know.
Material conscious, because I think they are not it might be Mataji, because I think they are not considering Krishna as the supreme, and they are taking some of the other things. That's why Prabhupada is saying material consciousness, because how we can attain the highest spiritual reality is by understanding Krishna's form, and getting free from these what we discussed, right? Bhaya, Krodha, and the third thing is what? Krodha, Bhaya, Krodha, and Raga. So Raga, Bhaya, Krodha. That's what. And
In the sentence that I was saying was, one has to get rid of all three stages of material consciousness. He calls it all material consciousness, attachment to material life, fear of spiritual personal identity, which is, you know, getting into the which he earlier called the highest form of spiritual existence without a personal identity. He called it spiritual.
Yeah,
and
then
the
he called
conception
it
of
as
void
material.
that arises from frustration
Yes,
in life.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Never mind. I mean, I was just a little confused, but it might be me.
Yeah, no, not you, Mataji. I think that's a good point. But I think that's what Prabhupada meant, because it's not completely understanding Krishna. So still, whatever it is, if they are not attaining Krishna, then they are, which consciousness is just material. I think that's what he's referring to.
Yeah, for us bhaktas, it can be considered material consciousness. Yeah, last snare of Maya, like you said.
Yeah. Okay, so we just have some few minutes left. Let me quickly discuss this point also, because we are just last part of the purport. Please bear with me. So Prabhupada also says how we can attain, right? So how we can get free from this anger and this attachment, right? So all these three things, how we can get free is when we understand Krishna. So what is the business of a Krishna conscious person is, I mean, like the Prahlad Maharaj, he wants to liberate, like he wants to give this knowledge to other people also. Prabhupada also says that these European and American boys and girls, right? Prabhupada says in the class, he mentions that these American boys and girls are not coming to me for material gains or for some money, like from for some dollars. See, Prabhupada is not giving any dollars to them, right? But what Prabhupada is giving highest than this money conception. So they have left everything. Prabhupada also talks about in the class, says that like easily in India it's a little difficult, but easily in America, if somebody is working, they can earn $25 a day, right? And $25 at that time, Prabhupada compares it as 1250 rupees. That's way higher, right? In India, if you talk about at that time, 30 years back or 25 years back. So Prabhupada says that, see, they could earn that money, but they are not earning. They have given me everything. Why they have given? Because they have got the higher taste. That's what Prabhupada says. So he gives the example of these boys and girls, how you see them and then you become Krishna conscious like that. And also he says that, so our business is, but our business is to go to door and tell these people, chant Hare Krishna. And how they have done that, all these American boys and girls, the Prabhupada's disciple, because they have followed the instruction as much as chant Hare Krishna. But what is our case? Even if we got this knowledge, but what is in my case, chant Hare Krishna 16 and then done. That's it, right? Or just minimum bare. That's not the case. We have to chant whenever we have the time. So that's the point Prabhupada made there in that lecture. And also the last stage, I have to go very shortly on this. So Adhu Shraddha. So there are the 9 stages how one can how one can attain to the prema stage. So first stage is Shraddha. So first should have some faith. When that faith is there, then with that faith we go to what we do, sadhu sangha. So when we do the association, when we go in the association of devotee, what we do bhajan kriya. Bhajan kriya means we started performing some chanting. And imagine when we were not there with the devotee association, then we were doing, no, we are not chanting, we were not reading, hearing about Krishna. So bhajan kriya means the bhajan, like Krishna's activities. So either chanting or doing kirtan or reading or hearing. So the third stage is bhajan kriya, and then with that bhajan kriya, what happened? That anartha nivritti happened, like the unwanted desire from our heart. If we perform the bhajan very nicely, then the anartha nivritti, these all anarthas in our heart, that would go away from our heart. And once that go away, then we will have the nishtha. Nishtha means the steadiness, like um, like doing your bhajan very very perfectly. That nishtha, like I should have that belief that, and I should every day regularly practice my sadhana bhakti very nicely, so that I develop that nishtha, steadiness to do, like not doing today and not doing tomorrow, doing today and not doing tomorrow, like not like that. And then once we are steady in our bhajan kriya, then ruchi, then the taste develop. But what happens when we are not in the steady platform, then the taste doesn't come, right? Because that stage is you are like the student who have completed first grade will go to the second grade. But here the first come is cha, like the steadiness should be there in performance of bhajan kriya. And then the ruchi, the taste develops, and then the taste develop, then after the taste we attain to the bhava stage. And after the bhava there is a stage called prema of the um, prema, like highest perfection is the prema to Lord Krishna. So this is what the 9 stages I have discussed in a short, because it doesn't have much time left. But does anybody have just a one question, comment, anything they can share on these things they have? So if not, then we can also wrap it up at stage 2. But the last Prabhupada says how we are able to practice this. So this is the method how we practice the Krishna consciousness, or
Can
how
you,
we get free from.
Padmalochini, can you say something about bhava and prema, the last two stages? I know that you have a little short time, but can you
Yes,
say
Mataji.
elaborate on those two?
Yes, Mataji. So bhava is actually a stage where we attain it before the prema. So if we talk about an example, when we have to go to the flight, we have to be in the airport. So before attaining Krishna's prem, there is a very little difference, but there is a difference. Once the bhava has been attained, then only we can attain the prema of the Lord. Like Prabhupada also talks about how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is mad. There is one verse I am forgetting, that line, prema pumanartho. If somebody remembers, just remind me. There is one beautiful line, only one line, that verse, but I forgot, that prema pumanartho. So how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching us that we should be attached to the Lord. How the Lord was there in Gambhira just for the last 18 years of his life. He was spending, he preached for 6 years, right? He traveled extensively throughout the South India tour and a lot of the places in India. But 18 years of his life, like from 30 to 48, 18 years, he have kept himself just immersed in that prema of Krishna. So he was mad. I mean, if you hear those pastimes, God is rubbing his head because he cannot see Krishna, and he is so much ecstatic, that prema, how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has shown Mataji, like he used to go out, he used to say Krishna Krishna, he used to go out and he used to be fell in the waves of the ocean or the river, and then his body will elongate, like it has been mentioned that his joints will be separated. And I think there was one complete pastime, but I don't remember. There was a very beautiful pastime where one fisherman catch the Lord, and he think that he has some ghost in it. And then here Sarup Damodar and all those devotees were searching the Lord, and then they said, this is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and something like that. So that is called a prema stage. And bhava stage is example in our shastra for the bhava is Bharat Maharaj. So Bharat Maharaj has attained the stage of bhava, but because he was not, uh, like, let's say if a sannyasi, right? If there is a sannyasi and he think, I have attained the highest perfection, I have attained the highest ashrama in all the 4 ashramas, then I need not practice all these regulations and all these things. If he started thinking that way, then he will certainly fall down under the illusion, because this practice make us stabilize or steady in our path. If he doesn't do our practices, then we cannot maintain our spiritual life as well, right? So for maintaining the spiritual life, like Bharat Maharaj, even though attained bhava stage, he falls down. Why? Because he has, instead of doing his bhajan in his bhajan kriya very nicely, performing very well, not falling under the illusion, but what he did was he grabbed all his attention to put all his attention to this baby deer, and that's how he just fall down, because he did not practice it at a proper level at that stage. So like I have given example of sannyasi who can also fall down in illusion, right? Prabhupada says that I always pray to, Prabhupada is a pure devotee, but to teach us, he says, I always pray to Krishna. So I always pray to Krishna that please don't let me fall down. That's why I don't fall down. But how many times I pray, right? We pray. So to not fall down from a spiritual life, we have to be very steady. That's what Mataji, in short, I had to add on that. I hope it's that.
Sorry, I think there's another class or something. I'm sorry. Okay. All right, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. We'll pay our obeisances to all of the assembled Vaishnavas. Vancha
Kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya cha patitanam
Vaishnavebhyo
pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
namo namaha
Ananta
Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai Srila
Guru Srila Prabhupada ki
की
jai.
जय
Jai.
पद्मलोचनी माता
Padmalochani
जी
Mataji
की
ki jai.
Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Bhagavad
कृष्णा
Gita. Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.